I'm Ted Morgan, professor of political science at Lehigh University, where I've taught for 35 years. My third and most recent book, What Really Happened to the 1960s, How Mass Media Culture, deals with the topic of democracy that I've dealt with throughout my career. Well, essentially, it's a book about how this country moved from a time of democratic empowerment for millions of Americans to today's world, which is really not working, in which our politics are not working, and which most Americans feel fairly powerless. And I concentrate largely on the role played by the media, the way the media looked at movements during the 60s and how that influenced that era, and ever since, how the media distorted that past in ways which helped bring the world we have today. We have a much more complex media today than we did in the 60s because of the multiple channels, cable, and so forth, but also social media. I mean, there were alternative media back then, but today's social media, you can instantly get messages conveyed to thousands, millions of people about what's really going on in your view. So it's a much more complicated situation. The fundamental issue, I think, is will the social media conversation stay over here outside the way mass media deal with this issue? Because the mass media are sort of our commons. This is where we make decisions. Our political system makes decisions inside these boundaries. If that discussion's happening over here, it's not going to be part of that debate. And that's where the movements of the 60s ended up, over there. So I think that's a major kind of question facing the Occupy movement today is, can we in some way, through the social media, influence the mass media? Maybe we need to reform the mass media and decorporatize the mass media to really do this, but that needs to be part of the conversation. I think Occupy movement's message is much more powerful and much more significant in terms of where we're going in this society in the future. And it has to do with the argument our system is broken, or as somebody said, our system isn't broken, it's fixed, which is an interesting twist. The corporations essentially own our politics. And the voice of the people is not part of that in any effective manner. And until that changes, until we have until we have an economy that's shaped by the values of democracy, we'll have a democracy that's shaped by the values of capitalism. And that's what we have. And that doesn't work. It no longer works, and we're heading towards disaster. One of the things about our discourse is the fairly extreme right-wing argument is part of a legitimate discourse. It always has been. It's never been sort of, well, who are these crazies? I mean, not that there aren't crazies, but who are these crazies that are saying these things? They're credible people. They're, well-endowed people. They're billionaires. They're members of Congress, etc. So that argument is always part of the discourse. So when Tea Party comes along, well, now we have a groundswell expressing this point of view. Whereas Occupy is coming from out there saying, system, you're not working. And, who are these curious voices? And then it becomes, who are they? And okay, well, what are their demands? And again, it's narrowing it. And we're not really hearing the things which people really feel about the system. And it's profound because we are in trouble. We are really in trouble. Actually, I don't consider myself a liberal. I think I'm a Democrat, small d. I believe in democracy. And I do have a lot of sympathy for liberal arguments, but I think the liberal position does not really address systemic problems. One thing I think Occupy clearly needs to do is, in each community, since there originally was an Occupy in each community, they need to reach out to other groups and sort of develop lasting, ongoing relationships with labor unions, civilian population of all kinds, workers, etc., teachers, you name it, because they need to help people understand what they're about, and they also need to hear from other people their views of what's going on in society so that they can actually come together and form a very powerful movement. the democracy process is an ongoing learning experience for everybody. There's never a kind of closed end, we're finally there, we've reached it, we all understand everything perfectly, and we are a great democracy. It's an ongoing process in which people learn from each other. They learn from their actions and the responses to their actions. They learn from engagement with political leaders. They learn from engagement with other groups. That's part of what is going on and will continue to go on and must go on.